Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I'm here to review episodes 2 and 3 of Loki. Now, I am way late. Episode 4 just came out today. I just saw that, and I will be reviewing that as soon as I can, but I gotta get these episodes out before I can get to that madness, because these two episodes 1 and 3 were maybe not as crazy as 4, still fucking good shit. Now, episode 2 picks up shortly, almost immediately after episode 1, with, this sect of the TVA going off. Now, at the end of episode 1, we see that, I believe her name is, is it Mox? Mox, like this general in the TVA, decides to take it upon herself to go off and do her own thing. And that's where we leave off, and we don't know what the fuck they're off to do. And Loki and Mobius are trying to find Sylvie, because as we find out at the end of episode 1, like, the TVA, there's this, I can't remember the name of it, it's like the Loom. So time, as we've seen in the MCU, time are these threads. And each thread is a different timeline, alternate timeline, variant timeline, whatever we want to call it. And as it turns out, we always thought that the TVA just had the one sacred timeline going. No, there were other the sacred timeline is the MCU timeline, but there were other timelines going very congruently with the MCU timeline. These were timelines that were very like the MCU's timeline, very much. These were other timelines where He Who Remains, aka Kang, didn't exist, so they were allowed to exist. Because the only timelines that are technically considered, bad are the timelines where another one of him could exist. So there weren't other timelines congruently with the sacred timeline of the MCU. And the TV had a device that monitored and allowed it to flow. It's how they were able to keep track of all the shit. It's how they were able to keep track of everything, because all the timelines would go through this machine. And the TVA would be able to monitor it and, make sure nothing went crazy. And the machine was built to handle a certain amount of timelines. But Sylvie killed He Who Remains, and all of a sudden it became a bigger and now there are more timelines. Too many timelines for the machine to take. So now they have to fix it. And OB, great new character, basically, they have to grow it. They have to manually make it bigger, or create more, something else that can help handle the amount of timelines that are being pumped through this thing. And so now they're like, okay, we got to find Sylvie, because Sylvie might know something. We got to find Sylvie because for some reason I saw Sylvie. We got to figure out what the fuck these other TVA agents are off doing. And it was a lot. It was a lot. So that was episode 2. That was like basically all of episode 2. Was trying to track down those TVA agents who are out in the wild doing their own thing. There's some great acting sequences between, specifically Mobius getting actually upset and really actually consider that he doesn't want to think about what his life would have been like on the timeline. There's this great gag with Loki when Loki was like, "Oh, remember that time I got angry at my dad and just went to Earth and held New York City hostage?" Basically describing the first Avengers movie in a joking way, like a reminiscently joking way, which is how they should always do it. That is the great thing about having an MCU or cinematic universe of this scale of anything. There's nothing else like the MCU. That Loki having a throwaway joke like that is such a big, like, wow, that was a fucking $1 billion movie you're referencing, you know what I mean? There's something really cool about that. And there was this great sequence, and they introduced this great new piece of technology. I don't know if they introduced this in season 1 or not, but it's like this fucking cube thing. Now remember this, because it will come back later in the season. It's like this orange cube that just pops up around you, and it can shrink and grow, and but it can shrink, and it can just squish people. And like Loki threatened Homeboy with that, Bradley with that. Great sequences between them, good acting, fun moments. Episode 1 was a solid 8.5 out of 10. Episode 3 was another step up. First of all, episode 3, we get Ravonna back, we get Miss Minutes back, and we get our first appearance of Jonathan Majors, Victor Timely. I believe his name Victor Timely. I know his last name's Timely. Victor Timely, another Kang variant, but this version is in the 18th century, which is interesting. I believe. Wait, is it the 18th century? I believe it's the 18th century. Don't quote me wrong on that one. This one is like 1860 something, like, so it's a time period version of him. But we were told that Kang came from the future, so it's very interesting. Like now. Now it's one of those things that in the multiple possibilities of the world, you could have been born at a different time. Maybe. Who knows? But all we know is Miss Minutes and Ravonna are trying to turn this guy into the new Kang. You know, apparently Kang had a protocol that he had to implement upon his death. And one of the big things they needed to do was find this variant and, you know, kickstart him and put him on his way. And Loki and Mobius are trying to track him down too. And there's kind of something going on there with them both attempting to catch Victor Timely. How most of the episode takes place in this time period. So this is a cool episode because it's a period piece, basically. Only like there's like maybe 10 minutes that take place in the TVA, and the rest is in this 1860 something time period. Like, so it's and they really well executed it. There's some good gags, there's some good Easter eggs. Obviously, the Thor Asgardian mural with Boulder, which you know, people have made a thing about that, but it is very interesting the way Loki talks about Boulder. He doesn't say Boulder isn't even real. He says why is Boulder here? No one even knows him. As in, Boulder is real. Boulder is an actual god, an actual Asgardian. He just doesn't think he's good enough to be mentioned. As in, Boulder is out there somewhere. That's the vibe I get. Which, who knows? Boulder could be out there somewhere. He was almost, minor little thing in case you know, Boulder has almost been introduced in the MCU 4 times? Every Thor movie, which is nuts, every Thor movie has concept art for Boulder. And there's concept art of Daniel Craig as Boulder in Multiverse Madness. The MCU has come close to introducing Boulder almost 5 times, basically. 5 times. He's like Nova. Like, as James Gunn, there's been multiple scripts in the MCU where Nova was supposed to be introduced. There are a lot of characters that are supposed to be introduced. Like, you know, Wasp for a long time before Ant-Man and the Wasp came out. Like, Wasp's supposed to be introduced a long time ago. So Boulder's an interesting character, and it's not like he's a big deal in Marvel Comics. I don't think he's not really that big of a deal. It's just an interesting thing, you know, that character isn't there. That it's the one character in the Pantheon they haven't even mentioned. I mean, they even had their own version of Enchantress. So it's just an interesting thing. But moving on, there's obviously a little bit of romance between Timely and Ravonna. As we know, for comic book people, we know that Kang and Ravonna Renslayer are like lovers / most of the time they're lovers. Most of the time they're lovers. Often he's trying to save her life. Often that's Kang's whole fucking deal for why he travels in time in the first place, is to try to save her life. So they're interesting, like tragic star-crossed lovers. That's kind of deal. Where she's destined to always lose the woman he loves, and he will just always try to save her. So, like, you know, so Ravonna and Kang, as soon as you heard her name as a comic book fan, you're like, whoa, I know her and Kang have a thing. And they hinted to that. Episode 3 was Miss Minutes. Oh my god. The Miss Minutes scene, holy shit. That was something. That was something. Oh my gosh. Miss Minutes going like I felt so uncomfortable. It was like she was like pressing herself up on him. Why didn't you build me a real body? I could have been your woman. Like, whoa, what the fuck is happening right now? Is this little AI clock, this little fucking artificial clock, like just like coming on hard as fuck? And it just can't, it didn't come out of nowhere. It's a slow build. And if you watch the episode again, you realize, like, slow build. Like, yo, Miss Minutes is in love with He Who Remains. It's like, whew, okay. That's creepy. You know, I was like, oh my god. Whew. I was terrified, man. I was terrified. That episode 3 terrified me near the end. So yeah, episode 3 was a blast. That's a 9 for me. I know some people feel differently, but the period piece aspect of it was so cool. They executed it so well. Jonathan Majors, Victor Timely is such this fun character. He was interesting. You don't know how you feel about him because you don't know what to expect from him. He's a little mischievous, but like in a good way. obviously Loki and Sylvie and all that is so good, getting Ravonna back, and oh my god, missed minutes. Whew. The missed minutes of it all was a lot. Was a lot. So that is my review of episodes 2 and 3 of Loki. My episode 4 review will be coming out sooner than this, hopefully. You know, it depends on how crazy my day is. But thank you guys for joining the Congress Movie Show. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.